there, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the Torgo Entertainment YouTube channel. Torgo here. Welcome back to another gig log. And welcome back to another wedding.
Take it easy, will you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where'd I get you?
If I show you where you got me, we'll never get out of here.
Oh man, this wedding. You can hear that, right? The trepidation in my voice regarding this wedding. I think that comes off a lot more negative than it should, because I have no problems with the people that are hiring me for this wedding. I'm doing the wedding of Chris and Corrine today. And full disclosure, this was a subcontracted wedding. I've mentioned this in gig logs past when it was applicable. I think I've only done 3 weddings for them over the past 2 years. This will be number 4. But this is a company that does weddings all throughout the country, and they reached out to me seeing if I wanted to do a couple weddings for them, fill in the schedule, which was more of an issue, especially, last year. And I have 6 weddings, I think, through them. But to be fair, most of those are honestly reschedules from last year. That is not the case for this one. This was always going to be June 11th, 2021. So today we head to do the wedding of Chris and Corrine. And I know I've talked about this in previous gig logs, how when I do a subcontracted wedding, to me that's another level of pressure, because not only do I have to represent myself and my company, but in a way I also have to represent this other company, even though I'm very gung-ho when it comes to the planning of everything. So I feel like a lot of the stuff they have to do, besides booking the gig, like once the ink is dry on the contract, they're pretty much like, you guys do it. It's the way I like to handle things. I know it's technically not a Torgo Entertainment wedding, even though I hate that phrase, but it's still me performing, so I still have expectations I set for myself when I do these things. So when I say I do a subcontracted wedding, more often than not, it's gonna be someplace kind of farther away. And that's no different here, because today we head to a new venue. We go to Dutch Harvest Farm in Lansing, New York. Let's go to the map and check out exactly where that is. It's an hour 15 or so. I know I've talked about Ithaca in the past. Ithaca has a ton of stuff going on, but I don't really play there very often. This is north of Ithaca, right on the shore of Cayuga Lake, like 15 to 20 minutes north of the city. This wedding has involved a lot of preparation. I actually went to check out the venue twice in the past couple months. Let's check out some footage from when I was last there. You can see from the first time I was there, I definitely went in the middle of winter, and there was a lot of construction going on the barn, which, that ended up being less than fruitful. But I did get a good scope of the layout, and I learned really quickly that it was another 2-story barn venue. So my mind immediately harkened back to Jonathan and Chloe's wedding from 2019, one of the longest gig logs I've ever made. I think there was 20 straight minutes of wedding footage in that particular gig log, but unfortunately I had to do that one by myself. Fortunately, Andy is coming with me on this one. That'll help out a lot, but a lot of the layout is kind of the same. We have a 2nd story, which I'm going to have my icon profile shining down on for an additional spotlight for first dance and whatnot. I have an outdoor ceremony I have to take care of, although this one is under a pavilion and hopefully it's not nearly as buggy as that wedding was 2 years ago. Can you tell I recently rewatched that gig log to take notes? And the music's gonna be kind of all over the place also. They want a little bit of country, a little bit of rap, a little bit of rock, all over the board. The only thing they don't want is EDM, which, it's a wedding. That's not the most ridiculous request in the world. And the second time I got to go there, I actually got to meet Corrine in person, which I always try to do. That's another reason I'm wary of subcontracted weddings, is you don't really meet the couple ahead of time. But I did get to meet her. I brought some of my 80J uplighting. I'm not really doing that much uplighting at this wedding. They didn't ask for it. I'm probably gonna have very minimal just to, spruce it up a little bit. But I had her pick the colors that she wanted. We're going with 80J presets 30 and 32 because their colors are burgundy and navy. And as we know, burgundy or navy are 2 colors you just can't do with lights, really. So we're gonna do a little bit on the lighter side. And I might throw some amber in there also, because amber always pops on the barn decor. I have my new totems, which I've never actually used before at a gig. I've tested them downstairs. I learned that my ceilings are not quite tall enough with the moving heads on there, and the moving heads are new also because now I have the Focus Spot 3s. I'm not using the Pocket Pros anymore. I finally got the bigger vehicle, so I finally can get the big boy stuff. But on top of that, I have all 3 wireless microphones are coming with me. I have the X stand and the ceremony setup. I have the Bose S1 Pros because we need to have additional speakers outside during cocktail and reception because they're going to be using the paved portion out there. We're going to be using the ADJ Icon Profile for the first dance because it's a softer light than the harsh ones of the moving heads. I'm using the Wi-Fi technology with all my ADJ lights, which means I had to buy an iPad because you need to use it on iOS in order to get the app. I had to do custom music editing for this wedding. During the ceremony, there's a song that they wanted me to condense down, and I actually made a video of me doing that in real time. I was going to include it as part of this gig log, but it ended up being 12 minutes and change. So with its own video, you can go to the card up there and click that if you're interested in how to edit down music in my DAW. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on, and not to mention this is Andy's first wedding with Torgo Entertainment. I'm not really nervous about him doing a wedding for the first time. I know he can handle the technical side of things. He's been in several bands over the years. He came with me on the indoor 5K at the mall back in April. But with all these moving parts, it makes me a little hesitant because in my mind, it always goes that there's that many more places for something to go wrong. And the other issue that I kind of foresee with this wedding is the time. It is a Friday. It is currently 9:15. We have to leave at 11 o'clock because I'm giving myself 4 hours to set up for this wedding. I am not taking any chances. New stuff, gotta configure everything, gotta aim the moving heads. And on top of that, I have been going since pretty much 3:30 yesterday afternoon because that is my schedule during the week with my other job. That 10:45 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, I just got out of work 2 hours ago. I can't really go to bed because in just a little bit, I gotta go do a wedding. This is a 36-hour day and I'm worried about me being tired by the end of the night. But you know what? This is just one of those things you gotta do. I'm not encouraging it, I'm not thrilled about it, but I gotta do it. And I think it's good to be a little nervous doing a wedding because that way, you know, you're on your game a little bit more. Back when I managed a Korean restaurant 10 or 11 years ago in New York City, we never made mistakes during the lunch rush. Whenever orders would really start to get messed up or when, you know, the staff wouldn't be cleaning the place all that well, that always happened on the slower hours because, you know, you're not focused as much. So having that impeding pressure kind of helps with the work ethic, for me at least. Maybe different for you. But I hope you're ready for this one. We'll see what happens. I'm ready. Let's go. That drive was not a lot of fun. Not because of the distance, an hour 15 isn't bad for me at all, but there was a lot of traffic in Ithaca which I showed. There was a detour we had to take pretty close to the venue because the bridge is still out on 34B, and both of our cars were quite full. Well, maybe not so much Andy's. Andy actually had to get some of the overflow of the gear, but my car, yeah.
I'm out of room.
Yeesh. Well, we made it anyway, and here's the venue, the layout of pretty much the entire property. There's a pond off to the side, and if we flash, here is where we're going to be, in the corner of the venue. But getting there ended up being a bit of a problem because we thought we were going to be super smart, getting there 4 hours ahead of time. It's about 12:30 p.m. when we got there. But there were a bunch of vendors unloading other things as well, a lot of larger supplies like tables and chairs and whatnot. So we had to wait in the parking lot, start to haul stuff that way, and we're all the way on the opposite side of the building from the load-in entrance. And keep in mind that not only do we have all that, we also have to do the stuff for the ceremony. And there's 2 stories inside the building. A lot of hiking, but we got it all done. And here we have the setup for the entire thing. That's Andy in the background just kind of hanging out. You gotta get this footage when you can. Look at all this stuff you haven't really seen. But you have seen this, the good old JBL SRX 828 SP subwoofer. I don't like where the power supply is for it, but hey, what can you do? It's on a different breaker, hopefully. And behind that, we have my Dragon Frontboards facade, the Ritmo pattern, which I use at weddings, my light-up ADJ speaker stands. I have that pink color for the facade and the blue ones for the speaker stands, just to break it up a little bit. On top of that, my QSCK 10.2 speakers. Nothing particularly strange there. You've seen those a bunch of times. But if we go a little bit to the left,
Look at this. So we have some hex pars, some element hex pars rather, on the bottom, and then the big old base plates, and here we have the global truss, the 2-meter trussing, and on top of that, the ADJ Focus Spot 3Z moving heads. These things are absolutely monstrous and huge compared to what I used to have. I'm gonna have Andy come over here. Yeah, can you lower this down a little bit to show you how the truss is going? So here we have the 5PX, the metal framed par can from ADJ up top, because that way it doesn't get hurt in transit. We have a bunch of stuff to make sure everything stays in place, some harnesses. We have the new spot for the power bar links. I have mounted them inside the truss, and now you just have the IEC cord coming out the bottom. There's some DMX cable in there, and suddenly everything is wired. DJ Bar made a video on that. Feel free to check that out if you want to know how he did that as well. It's a little bit different, a little more wireless. Here we have my Shure SLX-D transmitter for my microphone, and that microphone is right there with the purple foam topper on a tiny little mic stand. And there we have the Power Bar 65. That white plug is for the iPad. We have the Pioneer DDJ SX2 controller, my Samsung Odyssey notebook running Virtual DJ Pro. You have the solid-state hard drive, the trackball mouse from Logitech, the 2 controllers to control the colors of the light-up speaker stands, the GoPro, which we really wanted to mount on one of these wooden posts, but we just couldn't find anywhere for it. That light blue battery is an extra for the GoPro, because those burn through batteries quite quickly. My Audio-Technica MX50 headphones, and there is the ADJ Airstream DMX bridge, which allows me to wirelessly control the lights, but unfortunately, it only works on iOS. Down here we have my power supplies. I know it's a little sloppy, you gotta clean it up a little bit, but hey, it's behind the facade. My anti-fatigue mat, because when you're on concrete, you definitely need it. My Allendale Defender to help hide some of the cabling. There was a lot of cable. There's a 25-foot cable on those powered bricks right there. And you see we're taping stuff down. And on top of the case for the moving heads, we have my supply of water, along with our personalized water bottles. Let's head upstairs. Let's go to the second floor and show you what I have up here. There's the physical iPad itself. I just have it up here because I was just messing with lights, trying to see how it looked from the second floor. My Manfrotto tripod, which this camera that I'm using, the Panasonic, sits on. I busted out this bad boy, the old Royal Galaxian from ADJ, just because I liked the laser. I wanted something on the second floor. And here we have the Icon profile, and that is going to allow us to have a softer light for those icon dances. We ended up not using those foam sticks. I keep bringing them to stuff and I just never get around to using it, and it ended up not being an issue. And there is the Airstream app on the iPad. So let's head back downstairs. Now, I have those in front of the totems because that way that acts as the source of the wireless source, and we can just do a manual DMX cable from those par cans up to the rest of the totem. We have 2 more element hex pars. Those are the STs acting as just something to make the doorway a little nicer. On the other side of that, we have these 2 speaker stands. No speakers on them because those are going to be the repurposed Bose S1 Pros, and there's power right next to each of the stands. We scrimmed all 6 of the speaker stands that we used today. Unfortunately, 2 of my 6 white speaker stands scrim don't have backs, so I decided that was the best place to put them. Hello, kid. And there's the pavilion. From the pavilion, this is where the ceremony is going to be. It's a lot of stuff today, I'm telling you. So, they have about 100 people showing up, as I mentioned before. You can definitely fit that here. But they have 2 efficients, so I couldn't use a lavalier microphone, so I decided to bring 2 microphones and 2 stands, get 1 for each, and this way it ended up covering everybody as you're here when we get to the ceremony. These are the ULXDs, the bad boy microphones, the ones in my ceremony rig that you've seen a ton of times before. I tried to make the stands a little inconspicuous, hiding behind the totems. I mean, there's only so much you can do, but I figure with the bridal party up there, you know, it won't be too bad, and it ended up being fine. And here we have where I'm going to be for the ceremony. See, white scrim on everything, man. There's the power supply for the ceremony, which is kind of nice. And on top, these are the Bose S1 Pro speakers. These will eventually get taken off and repurposed for cocktail a little later on. I figured that, you know, that's fine. They're small enough. It's not a big deal. Hello, Chromebook. It's been a minute since we've seen you. My Samsung Chromebook with this flash drive, which has all the music on it. My Yamaha 10-channel mixer. And this bad boy, the microphone rack, which has the Furman power conditioner, the 2 Shure ULX receivers, and here you have to make sure, before you start a gig, sync that microphone. And here we have the X stand, So that's pretty much everything. We only have time for one more thing, and you know what it is. It's time to level up. Let's go.
I asked Christopher and Krista. I knew it was going to do that. Anyway.
We now pronounce that they are husband and wife together in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Those whom God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. You may kiss your to introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Neal.
Your newlyweds, Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Reed. Make some noise for your newlyweds, everyone. By the time the song ends, who we will be left with are our newlyweds and the couple that's been together the longest amount of time. Unless there's a tie, in which case I don't know. 11 years I've never had a tie. Pretty impressive. 45. You invited him, Corrine, you would know. Now the numbers get scary. 55. bunch of people between 50 and 55. So if you were still up there when I said 50, you gotta make your way back up here. I know, I'm a cheat, it's terrible. Let's go with 51. I mean, you had to know that was coming. We have 2 couples left. 52. And they're tied. They're tied. It is a game changer. We have 2 couples that have been married 51 years. I've never seen that. All the beautiful women, which is all of you.
And we're back. The afternoon after. The late afternoon after. It's currently 4:45 p.m. as I'm recording this because once I got home from this wedding, I slept for 13 hours. I was up for 36 straight, so my body definitely needed it. That drive home was no picnic. You ever hallucinate while you're driving? Woo! Don't do that. Get sleep whenever you can. So yeah, that wedding. It was all right. That was a phenomenal wedding. So much fun. They danced to pretty much everything. It wasn't without a couple hiccups though. Let's talk about some of the stuff you didn't see. Now, I mentioned at the top of this video how nervous I was going into this wedding. Not only because I knew I would be very sleep deprived doing this entire wedding, but also because of all the new equipment that we had to deal with. Everything on the second floor, no problem whatsoever. This camera obviously works fine. The laser, I haven't used it in a couple years, but it's tried and true, no problems there. Putting the GoPro on the DJ stand seems to be the only logical idea. We really wanted to mount it to one of those posts that they had on the dance floor area, but we had no way to secure it. So we ended up just putting it there, and that way I could actually keep it plugged in power-wise, so that helps us get a lot more time out of it. I like the Hero 9 Black Edition GoPro quite a bit, but it drains battery like you wouldn't even imagine. That's the whole reason I have the spare. But as long as you can keep it plugged in, you get a lot more time out of it, which is why I have a lot more footage using the GoPro, especially near the tail end of the night. Those totems for the most part work great. Unfortunately, I really didn't have the time that I needed to properly aim the moving heads for every single preset that I had. So when it came to the dance floor lighting, I pretty much had to stick to the color one that would just cycle through all the colors, and the moving heads are just kind of going back and forth, but it was perfectly fine. No one had any issues with that whatsoever. That's one of those things that only I noticed or other DJs noticed. The crowd does not care about that. Speaking of things that the crowd apparently doesn't know about, let's talk about those introductions, shall we?
For your wedding party. Bridesmaid, Carrie Prego, escorted by groomsman Cole Reed. Matron of honor, Lindsay D'Angelo, escorted by best man, Andrew Reed.
These poor people. Not only did they have the names messed up twice during the ceremony, but now the introductions are going to be jacked up. I had to switch some settings super quick in order to make sure it was okay, and I ended up pulling it off. But that was nerve-wracking.
So here's what happened, and I actually brought in my board for this, the Pioneer DDJ SX2. You've seen this a ton of times. On Tuesdays when I host trivia, there's very little throw, so I usually keep my gain quite down. I usually have it at about 9 o'clock on Tuesdays. On this particular mixer, it's not called gain, they just have it listed as trim for each of the individual channels. When I got done setting up and sound checking and everything, I guess I was so tired I forgot to change the trim back. So when it came time for introductions, and you start playing, you know, stuff with heavier bass like the Whitney Houston or the Justin Timberlake, that sound's gonna cut out immediately, and there was a little bit of microphone crackle as well. And while that microphone works great, obviously, I use it for trivia all the time, I've never used it for a wedding that had a bunch of other stuff going on. I used it last week, it was fine, but it was right next to the Airstream DMX transmitter, and apparently those frequencies are quite similar. So you couple the fact that we had, you know, potential interference from the Airstream DMX, which I need to look into to figure out that was the case. Also, we were concerned about there being power fluctuations, because while we were using all the outlets really well where we were, at least I thought we were, there was definitely some power draw issues, and I think that might have happened while the kitchen was going full force. I think something else might have happened because dinner took a long time to come out. But if you look here, this is where I left my channels at the end of the night. So you can see I have my trim for my 2 music channels at about 11 o'clock, and they were at 9 o'clock when I was doing the reception, when I started off the introduction, so yeah, that didn't work out so well. That was just a stupid mistake on my part, and again, nobody really seemed to notice, but I was freaking out. I think I hit it well, but I was really worried that, you know, there was gonna be dropouts and people wouldn't be able to tell what I was saying. Ceremony had no problems whatsoever, you know, those microphones are super solid, they're tried and tested. But again, this is what happens when I get a little bit overzealous and I have to keep challenging myself, so whoops. The only other thing that I did that I thought was a problem was the anniversary dance. They picked a very short song for that one. They did Stand By Me by Ben E. King, and they had a large, older crowd there. So I'm going through, you know, I have to go quick through those numbers, 10, 20, 30. We get to 50, and there's a fair amount of couples still out there. So I'm like, okay, fine, 55. Whoosh, empty floor. So I have to actually ask them to come all back, and then we still had a tie anyway. 11 years I've been doing this job, and I've never had a tie for the anniversary dance. But you know what? Those are minor issues. You can shake off a tech issue as long as you have the personality to back it up, honestly, with this job. And I must have done a good job because I have something that I very rarely get, and that was a thank you note. For whatever reason, I don't know how it is where you DJ and whatnot, very rarely do I get thank you notes, and very rarely do I get tipped. I don't ask for tips ever, because I feel like I charge enough where it's not that big of a deal. But listen to this. This is what the bride and groom left for me. Thank you so much for being a huge part of our day. You were great from the start, going through all the details and staying so organized and made the bride-to-be so calm. We truly appreciate your time and effort to make our day so special. We will recommend you to other friends and family in need of an awesome DJ. Thank you, Chris and Corrine. That's why we do it, isn't it? Making people happy, having a good time, facilitating the party. That's why I love DJing. Even if it makes my schedule ridiculous, even if I end up working so hard that I lose 6 pounds in a day, that definitely happened between yesterday and today, that's why we do it, and that's why I continue to love this job. A playlist is appended to the end of this video per usual, very disco heavy for a while ago during dinner. And I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm Torgo with Torgo Entertainment. We have proms coming up in the next 2 gig logs, so get ready for high schools, you freaking pervs, and I will see you at the next event. Take care.